Mr Ian Blackford.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. It's always a considerable pleasure to follow the Right Honourable Member for Rushcliffe. I have to say it's a strange world that we live in, because I find myself on so many occasions pretty well agreeing with much of what the Right Honourable Gentleman says. And of course, on many occasions I do find that the Right Honourable Gentleman is in the division lobbies with us. I would only respectfully and friendly say to him that his analysis, I think, is spot on. I think he's demonstrated the futility of those that believe that a UK out with the European Union can somehow quickly put together trade deals around the world. It's a fantasy, it's for the birds. And it is, I would say, Mr Speaker, an absolute travesty that what's been put to this House today is that we have that binary choice between the government's deal or no deal. That is not the case. There are other options which are open to this House. And the Right Honourable Gentleman for Rushcliffe has talked about either revoking or staving off the Article 50 process. That gives the House time, frankly, to come to its senses. And the idea, based on the knowledge of what we know now, of the risks of Brexit, because let's be absolutely clear, there is no such thing as a good Brexit. The government's own analysis, the analysis of the Scottish Government, just a second, the analysis of the Scottish Government demonstrates in any of the Brexit scenarios that this country, the countries of Scotland, of England and Northern Ireland and Wales, will all be poorer under any of the Brexit scenarios than they would be under the status quo. Mr Speaker, it is the responsibility of any government to provide security for its citizens. A government that wishes to bring forward a proposition that imperils the employment opportunities, the living standards of its citizens, is an abrogation of responsibility that it should have. And it's on that basis that I would plead with the Right Honourable Gentleman to vote against, or at the very least abstain on what the government is doing today, because this House, to use the phrase which is often used, must take back control. We must say to the people of the United Kingdom, however they voted, that based on the knowledge that we have, based on the facts of the matter that we have, and let's just look at what happened last week. Jaguar Land Rover announced that they'll be making an additional 4,500 workers redundant. That follows on the 1,500 that have announced. Now, we know that the reasons for this are complex, to do with diesel cars, to do with China. But a significant contributory factor is Brexit. And this government stands accused of putting workers on the dole, and putting workers on the dole as a function of ideology, because that's what it is. And if you look at the circumstances of where we are today, of a Prime Minister that called a general election on the basis that she thought she would come back with a thumping majority, she came back as a minority Prime Minister. And rather than seize the moment and recognise that this is a parliament of minorities, where the Prime Minister had to reach across the House to try and achieve a consensus, she failed to do that. And all that's happened since the general election in 2017 until now is that we've had an internal battle in the Tory party. The Brexiteers that want to drive us off the cliff. Mr Speaker, there is no way that the Scottish National Party and the people of Scotland are going to be sitting in that bus as the Prime Minister drives us off the cliff. There is no way that the people of Scotland will be dragged out of the European Union against its will. I will happily give way.
Thank my right honourable friend for giving way. He's making an excellent speech. And would he agree with me that, given the government's own analysis shows that no matter the outcome with Brexit, we will all be poorer, that it is the most vulnerable in society who will pay the price? People with disability who have been writing to me in their hundreds as chair of the Disability All-Party Group, terrified of the outcome that Brexit will happen and they'll be thrown into further despair.
My honourable friend is exactly correct. It is the most vulnerable in our society that will pay the biggest price for Brexit, those that are disabled, those that rely on our public services, because there is no question that our public services will be poorer. We know that economic growth in the United Kingdom will be reduced by Brexit. Why are we punishing people to that extent? And that's why it's right, and why the government has a responsibility to be honest with people, to reflect on what happened in 2016. There is an economist, Dr. Samuelson, who said, "When events change, I change my mind. What do you do?" Why has the Prime Minister not reflected on the situation that we're in? Mr. Speaker, I'm grateful for my honourable friend in her intervention, and I'm delighted to announce to the House that in the process of this debate, all 35 members of the Scottish National Party have spoken out. And all spoken out about the risks that we see to our constituents, the risks to our industries up and down Scotland. And of course, one of the features that particularly alarms us is the issue of freedom of movement. Mr. Speaker, we have benefited enormously from those that have come to work and live in our country, to add to the diversity of our communities, to make a contribution to our economic growth. EU citizens that have chosen to make their lives here. European Union citizens that are now being told that they're going to have to register to sustain the rights that they have. It is, as is mentioned by my honourable friend from a sedentary position, disgusting. I will in a second. Because this is about people that are part of us, our friends, our neighbours, our relatives. And we're now saying to them that they're going to have a different status as a consequence of what we have done. But it's not just about EU citizens that choose to come and live and work in this country. It's about our rights as EU citizens as well. If the government gets its way and Brexit takes place on the 29th of March, from a situation today that each and every one of us has the right to work in 28 member states, we will be restricted to automatically only having the right to live and work in the United Kingdom. I was lucky enough to work in the Netherlands. My son worked in the Netherlands. Why should my grandchildren not have the same rights that my generation had? It is an abhorrence that we are treating the people of these islands on that basis. I will happily give way.
I'm very grateful to my right honourable friend for giving way, and he's making a powerful point about the people who have come to live and work and be our friends and neighbours in our communities. Does he agree with me that it's an absolute disgrace that these people who are so vital to us are being told that they must make an application to pay to stay in their own homes, many of whom have been here for decades? It's an absolute outrage.
I agree, and of course it fits into the hostile environment that many in the government benches have prosecuted over the course of the last few years. We have an expression in Scotland, we're all Jock Tamson's bairns. You know, Mr. Speaker, if I look at our history over the course of the last 100 years, our population in Scotland has barely grown. We've gone from 4.8 to 5.5 million people. We face a ticking time bomb, which is an ageing population. The last thing we need is to be cut off from that supply of labour for people that want to come and contribute to sustainable economic growth in Scotland. How are we to afford to be able to invest in our public services if we cannot generate economic growth? Because that's what leaving Europe is going to do to us. It's going to restrain our ability to deliver growth, our ability to make sure that we can look after the vulnerable in our society. Mr. Speaker, this is the defining moment in the Brexit process, defining moments for the future of relationships. Members of Parliament must recognise their responsibility, and for many, I know that this demands making difficult decisions. I would say to each and every member of Parliament, the primary responsibility that you have is not to party. The primary responsibility that you have is to your constituents. Think about the risks that are taking place as a consequence of this deal. It is the height of irresponsibility for the government to suggest that this is a binary choice. Mr. Speaker, in the SNP's amendment that we have laid today, we have given the opportunity for the House to support that we extend Article 50. Extend Article 50 and give the people of the United Kingdom the choice to make that determination. On the basis of the facts, on the basis of the knowledge as to what Brexit is going to do, it is only right and proper, in a democratic principle, that we allow the people of the United Kingdom to make that choice. And I appeal to members across the House. Now, we have in the SNP many friends across this place and many friends on the benches to my right. I'm appealing to the Labour Party. For goodness sake, get off the fence. Get off the fence. Because the young people that voted for Labour in England in 2017 will never forgive the Leader of the Opposition and his colleagues unless they recognise that this is the opportunity to unite this House, to vote down the government's deal, support a people's vote, allow the people to have their say on what they want. Will you do it? I can see the Honourable Chuntering, if he wishes to intervene and accept his responsibilities for once. Well, you can blow a kiss, but what you're doing is you're blowing a raspberry to the people of the United Kingdom. That's the reality, and it really is about time. If you're serious about politics, if you're serious about responsibility, then grow up. Grow up and accept responsibility, and don't dodge this. Don't dodge this. You know, it's little wonder that when we look at Scotland, that the people of Scotland have got a choice. And the Scottish National Party have been in government in Scotland since 2007. Well, I can hear people saying too long. But the fact of the matter is that we've won 3 elections on the trot to the Scottish Parliament, and we've won the last 2 elections to Westminster. And the party that's sitting in 3rd place in Scotland is the Labour Party. And the reason that the Labour Party are sitting in 3rd place in Scotland is because they're out of touch and out of step with the people of Scotland. I will happily do it.
I was absolutely. It comes as no surprise that when challenged by the leader of the SNP, nobody got up to defend the position of the Labour Party. Nobody. And what that tells us is that, does my honourable friend not agree with me? There is no such thing as a jobs-first Brexit. It's a myth.
I'm grateful for my honourable friend for that intervention, because he's absolutely right. And that's why I'm appealing to every member in this House to think about the people. Think about the people that have already lost their jobs. Think about the 1,000 people in the European Medicines Agency. Think about the 1,000 people in the European Banking Authority. Think about those at Jaguar Land Rover, and the workers at Jaguar Land Rover know that the Labour Party today are not going to lift a finger to protect their economic interests. That's the reality. A party that was once of the people that is just sitting back and failing to accept the responsibilities. Well, thank goodness, Mr. Speaker, in Scotland that we have an alternative, and the people of Scotland have watched everything which has gone on over the course of the last 2.5 years. Taking back control, they say. Well, my goodness, they've taken back control from the Parliament of Scotland. When this House pushed through the Withdrawal Act, what happened was, with responsibility over fisheries, over agriculture, over the environment, which were down in the Scotland Act when the Parliament was established, as matters which have devolved, supposed to be protected by the Sewell Convention. But of course, the government said, well, these are not normal times, and they grabbed powers not so much against the Scottish Government and the Scottish Parliament, but grab powers against the people of Scotland that had voted for it in a referendum in 1997. That's the reality of the Conservatives that have always been hostile to devolution. Now, of course, we're told, well, the people voted in 2016 and we should accept it. But, of course, the people of Scotland were told in our referendum in 2014 if we stayed in the United Kingdom, our rights within the EU would be respected.
Absolutely.
The fact that the people of Scotland voted by 62% to stay in the European Union is ignored by this government. The fact that the Scottish Parliament has said that we wish to stay as a very minimum in the single market and the customs union has been ignored by this government. Contempt for the institutions in Scotland, contempt for the cross-party unity that existed on these matters in Scotland. Mr. Speaker, the time is coming where the people of Scotland are going to have to reflect on how we are being treated, on how we are being ignored.
Listen to this.
The Scottish Parliament has a mandate for an independence referendum. And if and when the First Minister and the Scottish Government chooses to enforce that mandate, this House must respect the wishes of the Scottish people. I hope tonight that this House votes down the government's deal. I hope this House has the confidence to extend Article 50, to give the responsibility back to the people. But if this House is determined to push ahead with Brexit, the day when the people of Scotland will have to determine their own future, do we wish to be trailed to a United Kingdom that's going to damage our economic interests, or will we accept our responsibilities as a historic independent European nation? Mr. Speaker, that day is coming, and it's coming soon.